Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast.
Rays Rewind with Buschman and Drew.
Jansen. That is into center field. Here comes Kiermaier. Phillips has tied the game. Arozarena coming around. Throw home. Now he stumbles. But the ball gets away. Tampa Bay wins it. Brett Phillips, Game 4 hero.
The sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome in, everybody, to a special Rays Rewind. Breaking news. Well, not so breaking anymore since it's been all over the internet. First things first, Drew, we need to get our intro changed.
I know.
We need to get that redone. Totally.
I've heard that so many times now that I don't necessarily pay attention to what it's saying because I just, I'm pretty used to it. And so today it just hit different,
Yeah. So once again, Rays Rewind podcast, the sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast on the Sick Media Network. You know who you are. We just want to get right into it. If you haven't know already, Randy Arozarena traded to the Seattle Mariners late last night. And I know what you're thinking. Let's get into the Rays receive outfielder Aiden Smith, right-hander Brody Hopkins, and a player to be named later. Seattle Mariners get Randy Arozarena. Reactions. I think we both have a varying opinion of how this is affecting us, because I know we talked before we got onto recording this quick episode of everything. So I want to get your side first. I want your reaction about Randy going to the Mariners.
Yeah, well, I wanted to thank you first of all because you were the one that broke it to me. It's 6:30 this morning.
It happened overnight, like after the game. Boom, a trade happens, and I wake up this morning going. I looked at a couple of people's Twitter feeds, and like there's mock-ups of Randy Arozarena in Mariners uniform. I'm like, what? Yeah. And then I keep scrolling and scrolling. I'm like, oh, okay.
And we were up in the middle of the night with our son, our baby son, and so it still hadn't happened yet. So when I got your text this morning, when I woke up, I was like, oh no. And I told my wife, I was like, hey, I need to borrow. Let me get your phone real quick so I can look this up. I was like, I think the Rays just traded Randy Arozarena. So thank you for breaking it to me this morning. That was the first thing that I started my day off with. My initial reaction there's two layers to it. One,
yes,
I knew this, you figured this was probably going to happen. There was a small part of me that was hoping that, the whole talk about competing for next year too, in addition to competing for this year, that they would just say, you know what, we're going to keep them fan favorite, all this stuff. I was still kind of holding out hope for that. So I'm just kind of sad, honestly. Like, I mean, just on an emotional level, this one hurts.
Does it hurt more than the Wander thing?
Honestly, I have more an attachment to Randy than Wander, even though Wander's more just like an anger, like frustration type thing because his was completely self-inflicted. And I had obviously I had followed Wander a bunch in the minors and everything. So I was attached to him as a player, but his whole situation is just more like, what a moron, and just anger. This is more just sadness. And that's really more because Randy was one of my favorite players, probably my favorite player on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, back when we were in the Tampa Bay area and going, I went to 20 plus games a year. We sat, I literally every game, unless for some reason there was just an incentive not to be in left field, I sat in left field before Randy Land was Randy Land, because Randy was in left field. Like, we literally sat out in left field because we loved being where Randy was. Because he's great with the fans. He's just so much fun.
You know what, Drew?
And,
our standing ovation was all for nothing.
I know, our standing ovation. And so, I mentioned this on the podcast. I don't care who doesn't believe me because it's true. I came up with the Randy Land concept in 2021. Unfortunately, did not pass it on to the Rays. They still got it somehow. I'm still waiting.
No more now.
I'm still waiting on my royalty check, but I'm just sad. I mean, he had so many great moments. In addition to being a fan favorite and just being so great to everybody in the stands, he just had so many great moments. I know 2020 postseason gets brought up a lot, and that's certainly gets further and further away with every year. But again, I don't think the Rays make the World Series and get within 2 games of winning a World Series without him, obviously. So that'll always be something that we cherish as Rays fans. And then I still think that single-handedly he was like responsible for the most fun baseball game I've ever been at, which was the game 1 of the 2021 ALDS. That was
Is that where
probably
he stole home against the Red Sox?
yeah, he
Yeah.
he scored from first on Wander's double in the first inning, which was awesome. Just the energy was great all game from him. He had the huge home run like over our heads in left field, and yeah, he stole home. So like it was like one of the coolest games I've experienced at the Trop. And so I just have a lot of like just emotional attachment to him as a player for the Rays, and he's just so much fun. And I know that he, has lows, and he can look really bad, and sometimes he does things where you're just like, "What are you doing?" But I don't know. I'm kind of sad. I'm mostly sad about it. Like even though I knew it was a possibility, I was more. I don't know if I really thought I would be as sad as I am about it, and as I am, was this morning when I got your text. So thanks for ruining my day
Sorry,
at
man.
at
Actually, no, don't thank
8
me. Thank
o'clock in the morning.
thank the
Um,
Rays. Thank the Rays. Don't
I
thank
never
me.
did get to experience Randyland, the official Randyland experience. Unofficially, I've experienced it many times, but yeah, so I'm sad to see him go. I am glad he's going to a West Coast team. I don't think I mentioned this on the podcast, but when we talked about guys that could be moved, and Randy obviously being one of them, I always kind of thought it'd be really cool to see him in Philadelphia because their fans are, for better or for
Right.
worse, I know that they sometimes get a bad reputation in Philly for, like throwing snowballs at Santa, like, and all that stuff. Um,
Phillies
Eagles fans,
Phillies
but
fans are actually better than Eagles fans.
yeah.
Like Phillies
So like,
fans are like, they're okay. They're okay people.
yeah, a ton
Eagles
of respect
fans,
for them. They
no.
show up. I mean, they're
Yeah.
awesome. And from that respect, so I would have loved to have seen him in a team like that, especially one that's going to be for sure competing for a World Series. And would have loved to have seen him with like that kind of crowd and that fandom. They would have loved him there. So I was kind of always holding out hope that, not knowing what the return would be, that he would go to a place like that. So for him to go to Seattle, I'm indifferent about it. I'm glad it's not like, an East Coast team in the AL or something like that, or a team that we would necessarily. I realize that the Mariners are in front of us in the wild card, and there's that whole dynamic, but I don't really look at the Mariners. Like the Mariners don't really bother me in a sense. Like I don't, it is what it is. I don't. It doesn't really impact me one way or the other. So it seems like, obviously they're excited about him coming over. The second layer of my reaction to the trade is that I'm really disappointed in the return. Not so much that, like, I'm sure the prospects they got are going to be great or whatever. But I think, like a lot of fans, it sounds like, the Rays are going to thread the needle. We've heard, we're still competing this year, but also obviously we, as an eye towards next year, we're going to have a great team with the pitching and all that. So we don't know who the player to be named later is. Obviously, I'm sure it'd probably be someone like Julio Rodriguez or, George Kirby. No, I'm just kidding. But
That'd be nice.
we don't know who the player to be named later is. Of course, that could change things, but those two guys that we got back, Aiden Smith and Brody Hopkins, I just, it's probably going to be at least 2 to 3 years before we see them. So who knows? I mean, I know that there's all the scouting reports. The Aiden Smith guy could be a really big time player with tools across the board. And Hopkins has a really cool arm angle, and he just started pitching a couple years ago. So the sky's the limit, and he's already, depending on which service you look at, ranking service, he's the guy in this trade that could be really exciting. Aiden Smith also could be the guy that's really exciting, according to some people. I don't really know. I just know that they're not going to help us next year. So that's what's disappointing to me, especially when, if it would have been like a 1-for-1 and they were able to get somebody like a Harry Ford, or something like that, a guy that is a lot closer and at a position of need, I think that would have been more palatable for me. So for them not to accomplish that, and I have no idea what the discussions were. I don't know. I don't think they like willingly said, no, you know what? We don't want him. We'd rather get these guys off that are further away. Obviously, I trust that they made the best deal they could for what made sense. So I'm sure they didn't like willingly say no to other deals that would be that would be better options. but I'm still disappointed. I'm still disappointed that it's not a more immediate impact return. That I'm just glad it wasn't like a shortstop prospect that's 3 years away. So, anyways, that's how I feel. I'm largely disappointed and sad. And understanding it from a baseball perspective, but it doesn't necessarily remove the sting.
I got you.
So, what about you? I know you're a little bit on the other side of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of more on the business side of things, and I'm glad that I'm on a show with you because we can have both perspectives from like the fan side and then also
Yeah.
the baseball operation side. And I think this is business as usual with the
Mhm.
Rays. And excuse me, I can't talk today. And I think for all the fans that are upset, I get it. I totally get it. But you all knew this was coming eventually, either at the trade deadline, and obviously, it's a few days before the deadline itself, or it could have been happening in the offseason. And I get the frustrations and I get the tears and the crying and oh, he's a fan favorite. And I look at these as you knew it was coming. And I think more people are upset because of the return, because a lot of people thought, okay, if we trade one of our favorite players, we'll hopefully get somebody that's going to make an immediate impact either this year or next year because of, what's coming back next year for the rotation. And I can see the frustration there because, a lot of people are thinking, oh, well, we got fleeced. Did we?
Mhm.
Did we? And I look at Randy Arozarena, and he's a great player. I'm not going to take that away from him. But when it comes to being consistent and an overall outlook as him as a player, he's average.
Mhm.
He's average. I mean, he's inconsistent at the plate. He gets streaky at times. That's a good thing. But to me, I want consistency at hitting, and he's not. He hasn't been that way. He has those moments, those magical moments, which we all are going to cherish. And he's a fan favorite. Yeah, he throws balls to the crowd and he interacts with everybody. But that doesn't take away from the fact that when he's not not doing well at the plate, he's downright awful.
Mhm.
So I get that frustration, and I get the fact that the Rays keep trading away their fan favorite players. But look, if you're a Rays fan, you should be at this point in time where you shouldn't get attached to a lot of these guys because it's business as usual with the Rays. They are a small market team, and when it comes to the point where this player is going to make a lot of money and he's getting up there in age, he's almost my good buddy David said this morning. The Rays are like Leo DiCaprio. Once the player gets at a certain age, they'll go and trade them for something younger and something more shiny and new. I look at this trade with the players that we got back from Seattle, and the funny thing is, and I just found this out, that when the Rays traded for Randy, he was the 12th ranked prospect in the Cardinals system. Aiden Smith is the 12th ranked prospect in the Seattle Mariners system. So it could be a history repeating itself. But this, to me, really kind of indicates that the Rays are kind of not waving the white flag, but I think they kind of know, okay, we're probably not going to make the postseason this year.
Mhm.
So why not trade the guys that we can get the highest value out of? Now, I know a lot of people say, well, we didn't get the highest value out of Randy. That's to be determined yet because we don't know how he's going to be in Seattle. I know he's hot right now, and you don't know how these prospects are going to be. The Rays rarely like whiff on a trade. There have been a couple of trades where they haven't panned out, but it's one of these. We'll see in a couple of years how these guys are going to do. And I get everybody's frustration, but the team has to do what they think is best going forward, especially going for 2025. With the amount of pitching that we're getting back, they have to retool the offense. You also have to remember, Rays fans, this has been one of the worst offenses the Rays have had in history. The run differential has been god-awful this year. So why not retool your offense to where you're going to get things back and get consistent hitters to be able to score runs? One of the worst problems with the Rays this season, runners left on base. The guys can get across home base with guys up the plate. It's just it comes to the point where they have to look at the offense and go, we have to retool things. Pitching is fine. We've got our pitching for next year. Our offense needs to be retooled. There's going to be guys that are going to fill in for them. Caballero is going to fill in for Randy in left field. DeLuca can fill in at left field for Randy. I mean, DeLuca's not hitting that well at the plate, but you know, they've got guys that can fill in. And I know it stings. Randy Land was a staple for a couple of years. It's going to sting. I'm sure the marketing people are like, "Oh, we did all this work and now he's gone." But that's just the nature of the beast when it comes to the Rays. The Rays are not a big market team. They're not making tons of money where they can offer huge contracts to players. So, you know, when something goes down like this, you kind of have to take your bruises and move on from it, because if you're going to let it sting you, and if it's going to make you being turned off from not supporting the team anymore and not going to the Rays games at the Trop, then don't be a fan of this team anymore. Like, don't, because this is how they operate, and this is business as usual. So I think this is a great move for both parties. I agree with you. I think, you know, trading him to a West Coast team is a good thing, that we don't have to face him as much. But even if we did have to face him, it's not like he's going to kill us.
Right.
So I want everybody to, especially on social media, where the social media GMs are, "Oh my God, I hate this team now. And you know, this just sucks and I hate them." Then don't be a fan. Don't be a fan. Go follow somebody else. That's all I have to say. I think, you know, it's not a surprise. You're going to probably see more moves as the deadline gets creeping up on Tuesday. I think Tuesday's the deadline. So
Yeah,
you're going to see, Eflin's probably going to go now.
Yeah.
That's a given. And then don't be surprised if Isak is going to go too.
Rays play at Seattle August 26th to the 28th. So we get a month of preparation time to watch to see Randy again. He won't
do well against our pitching.
Oh, you don't think so? No, but see, he does. But see, I think in the moments though, he always comes up big. So I could see him not necessarily having a great stat line, but he'll probably get at least one off of us, one
Maybe.
homer.
I mean, the Rays always give up home runs anyways.
Did you see his? I
Oh,
thought his
FYI, sorry to cut you off. FYI, Kevin Cash did say Yandy Diaz will be back tonight for tonight's game.
Fantastic.
And then he'll be traded tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll go 4 for 5. Well, you know, I was thinking for some reason, Yandy, I was thinking, and I know that he defected from Cuba, so I didn't think he was back in Cuba, but given it was a family issue, I was for some reason thinking that he was somewhere international, and not in the Tampa Bay area. But when I read earlier in the week, I guess he's just been in Tampa, or, you know, wherever he lives in the area, he's been local. So it made sense that they were like, probably just, you know, take your time.
And
you
then
know,
when
what
we
do you
come
want
back,
me to
come
do?
back
And then
into
when we come
town.
back, we come back into town, you know,
That makes
obviously,
sense.
yeah. So,
Other
yeah,
thing too, I want also too. I mean, trading Randy away frees up, you know, money as well.
yeah. I mean, I will say, like, you know, obviously this is business as usual for the Rays when it comes to most players. Certainly not all. There's been a few that have avoided this fate that have been around. You know, Kevin Kiermaier, and, you know, Evan Longoria. Even, I mean, he wasn't immune to it. So it's hard to imagine virtually every player going through this at some point. So it is business as usual. I think with the stadium, you know, assuming that goes through on Tuesday. And I think for me, I want to start seeing some of this subsiding, some of this kind of behavior from the front office. Obviously, I think it can make sense from a baseball perspective. I mean, there's a number of reasons. He's a streaky hitter. He at this point, you know, for him going to a team that needs a spark, that needs someone that's successful in the playoffs, that needs somebody that can really provide, you know, like energy to a lineup. Randy's the perfect guy for it. So I would think actually you probably got given how he's performed this year, you probably got a pretty good return value for him, all things considered. And he's 30 now, or going on 30, and so, like,
20, I think he's 29. I think.
Yeah, like, and he's not going to get cheaper, and he's got Scott Boras as an agent. Like, there are many things that show, okay, this makes sense. However, I think as the Rays get into the new stadium, and that's what we've been hearing, like, you know, okay, they're gonna have more revenue. They get the, you know, a new TV deal, all this stuff. Like, I just want to start seeing some progress on this front, where not every single guy that starts getting expensive, and, you know, in a situation like this, like we don't always have to default to trading them.
Right.
That's what I hope. Because if we maintain this exact same type of behavior, even with a new stadium, and we just refuse to spend, even though we got more revenue coming in, we refuse to up our percentage of revenue spent on payroll. We refuse to increase that. That's when I will start getting more frustrated. I think for the most part, I've always accepted that this is just the reality of the team in the current state. But now that there's some light at the end of the tunnel with the stadium and the revenues that would come in from the additional stuff around it, and all the things, like I'm just hopeful that we're winding down on this kind of operation. Not saying that they're going to go out and be a top payroll team or anything, but just something like more in the just getting closer to that, maybe that middle ground of like, okay, we're we're an average team in terms of payroll, or how much money of our revenue we spend on payroll. So
well, that falls on the ownership.
Yeah, absolutely.
That falls on them. We've talked about this before. How Stu said he's uncomfortable with a $99 million,
right,
payroll. So that falls on them about spending. And once again, it is what it is. You have to face the facts that this is the team that by either the deadline during the summer or in the winter meetings, guys are going to be dealt, and fan favorites too. That's why with me, like I think after post Longoria trade, which look, I know people are still salty about that one, but it was time for him to like move on to somewhere else. Like he was getting up there in age. His production had been down. The Rays tried to get as much as possible out of him. Obviously that trade didn't work out, but after that trade, I kind of accepted the fact is, okay, this is how things are with them. And I'm not going to get attached to the players like I used to. That's why I buy jerseys with no names on it. So that way I'm not wasting my money. I still have a cool jersey to wear without, some player that's not even there anymore. But I think overall, with the Rays is they're going to retool. And we talked about this, I think, a couple shows ago, is that this team is going to look way different. And, and it's starting now. And, if a couple guys go over the weekend, don't be surprised if they do. And for Rays fans out there that are just denouncing the team now and just being butthurt about it, go find another team.
Yeah.
Go find another team.
You can't act surprised.
Yeah.
As far as the tea leaves have been on,
I think people are more pissed because of the return. Because they don't understand the return, because the return that they got back, these guys are 1 or 2 years away. I mean, remember, when Randy got traded over to the Rays, he didn't come up to the Rays for another year and a half?
No.
Maybe a year?
Well, no. He got traded. That was in the off season between 2019 and 2020. He came over with Jose Martinez, remember? Because they finally got
and then they traded away Jose Martinez. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was, I don't remember his stats. I mean, obviously they got
wasn't good.
In the middle of the year, he was gone. But
yeah,
he didn't debut for the Rays until later that season in 2020. I want to say because remember he got COVID.
Yeah, it was the COVID year. Yeah,
and that's how he got more muscular, because he just
worked out all the time.
Yeah. So it was that following season, but it was just September or I don't remember.
It was later on, because it was oh, this guy's coming out of nowhere and he's just making an immediate impact.
Yeah.
But I just going back to, I think a lot of people are just pissed because, we're expecting, a player that's like a major, in the show already, we're expecting a 1-for-1. We're expecting a guy that's going to come in and make an immediate impact, where, okay, now we got to wait a couple of years to see if these guys are going to pan out. I think more people are pissed because of that than anything. Because if you didn't expect him to get traded, then you're just living under a rock somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think just people are more mad because of the return is, oh, we didn't get a guy that's automatically getting plugged in. Oh, hey, one of the things I was kind of, or maybe they're still working on a deal, something like this, is if you're going to trade away somebody like that, maybe get a catcher.
Yeah.
But going back into it, it's just, I think a lot of people are.
We just drafted a 17-year-old catcher in the third
round.
Alex
Jackson is getting hot right now. Alex Jackson's getting hot right now. Don't sleep on Alex Jackson.
Catcher of the future for 2029.
The next Buster Posey.
Yeah. I mean, again, we talked about this. I mean, this is the impact of, I don't think that if the Rays get off to let's say how they've been playing since June and July. If this was the course of the whole season and they have been keeping kind of this pace, maybe if they didn't go 2-4 against the White Sox and 4-3 against the Angels, stuff like that. Maybe they don't trade Randy. They wait till the end of the year, off season, and keep him for a playoff run. We talked about this when they got off to such a poor start. This performance and how they do during the season was going to impact the trade deadline going into the final part of this year, and then certainly, what the team would look like next year. So Randy's the first one. I mean, I think, and again, talk about this over the last few weeks. I think Eflin makes sense to trade. Although my mind, I'm like, hey, I know if we're not confident Rasmussen's going to be a starter after this season. I know they're going to bring him back as a multi-inning reliever to get him back sooner this year. If that's not the plan to make him back into a starter for next year, or we're not confident in that, I mean, I would love to. I know Eflin's salary goes up. I think our pitching is going to be awesome regardless. But how great would it be if Eflin's our, third guy behind Taj and Shane? I see merit in keeping guys like that. So, but I also know that the reality is they're probably going to be moving him. I hope that if they decide to move on from guys like Eflin or even a Paredes, or God forbid if they trade, Fairbanks or Jason Adam, that we do see some of these returns showing something in the immediate future, whether it's a guy they can plug in now, or that goes straight to AAA, or something that is less like 2027 and beyond, because at that point it just feels like
here's my
lied to.
Here's my thing, and I think we'll wrap up for this. With the next trades coming, and they're coming, people, brace yourselves. The return for whoever's going to be traded next, I want at least one player that's going to be plugged in immediately, but I think we're just going to get prospects that we're not going to see for a while.
20-year-old shortstop.
Yeah, another shortstop. We'll just reload on shortstops. But look, I love this time of the year. It's the trade deadline. Things get crazy and stuff. It's my favorite time of the year, even though it affects my team and our team, and guys are going to get traded away. But I think that's that.
All right. Hey, quick prediction. Who's the next guy to get traded?
Eflin.
Think Eflin?
Eflin's gone. Yeah. That's probably going to happen Monday or Tuesday.
Well, he pitches on Tuesday night. He's scheduled to pitch Tuesday night. So obviously
Monday.
He won't pitch again for the Rays. It's not like they can throw him out there one more time and see like, hey, look how great he is. Monday. Okay.
Monday. And then probably Paredes.
I saw I know we're about to wrap up. The Athletic, Jim Bowden, their insider guy, one of the first trade that he mentioned he'd like to see done was Paredes and Pete Fairbanks to the Yankees for like,
it will never happen.
None of not even Jason Dominguez or Spencer Jones, but it was like two of their top 5 prospects or something like that.
It'll never happen,
guys. And I was like, that would be.
No, the Rays aren't that stupid to trade in division, especially to the Yankees.
Ironically, I think the one person, I know we talked about this, the one person that would make me the most frustrated that they trade away would be Pete Fairbanks, because he literally makes the exact same money next year. So if you're telling me you're going to compete next year, why would you trade a closer that has no salary increase? That's been great for you.
That's why we can agree on that. It wouldn't make sense, because why trade to your best assets in your bullpen that have been relatively consistent? They've had their hiccups this season, but they've been relatively awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't make sense to me. All these people they're saying, "Oh, Rays are going to trade Adams and Fairbanks." No, that makes no. You're going to see more position players traded.
Yeah,
than
that's
you
what
are
the log
pitchers
game is.
Yeah,
I mean, they could prove us wrong. They could trade them. It doesn't make any sense
unless you're going to get immediate impact players for those two guys. I'm talking about, hey, you're plugging in right away, not like prospects that are like 2 or 3 years away. It would not make sense.
I think people default to those two guys being on the board, and there could be legitimate, chatter about it. But I think because it's not a playoff team. Non-playoff teams don't need shut down relievers because it's not as important in the immediate future. So I get that it might be a default notion to think that those guys might be available. To me, if anyone, it would be Adam over Fairbanks, but that goes. But to me, it just doesn't make any sense if this plan is truly that you are going to be a playoff team in 2025 and feel like you're going to be there, and you probably will be with the pitching. Why would you? I don't know why you would open yourself up to more holes in your pitching and bullpen.
Right.
And when you don't have to get rid of those guys. And I mean, Adam, I realize is on arbitration, but he makes like $3 million. I mean, or something like that. Like it's not going to break the bank. So,
yep.
Anyway, so I think you're right on F. I think it'll be one of Littell or Eflin.
I maybe both.
Or
but you're gonna get less value out of Littell than you are Eflin.
I think Rosario. I think I'll change mine to Rosario. I think Rosario is an easy one to deal, and
I could see a package deal with Eflin and Rosario.
Yeah, I could see that too. So we'll see. But
we'll see. Well, thanks for joining in, guys. Like I said, it is business as usual. The Rays, Randy Arozarena once again traded to the Mariners. Want your thoughts and reactions? I know what your reactions are. That's going to be just tears of sadness, but it is what it is, guys. More trades to come with the Rays probably soon by the deadline on Tuesday. Once again, for myself and Drew, we'll see you guys later on the next episode, which will probably be anytime because you know how trades happen. They could happen at any time. So you'll see us pop up throughout the weekend.
That's why you gotta subscribe. You get the notification bell, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, we'll see you guys later on the Rays Rewind, the sickest podcast or sickest Rays podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Rays Rewind with Buschman and Drew on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.